Hello everyone, welcome to Haunted Maple 112. I have a story for you this evening. It's called The Station. A morning train to work in the city. A mist envelops the train. Dampness gets into the bones. Every morning the same landscape. Old railway lines left years ago to rot. Rail ties laden with oil and water, a chore to move. All tracks like this one have a haunting tale to tell. When the trains have stopped running for the evening, a conductor's voice is heard calling out, "All aboard!" to a train that isn't there, for people who don't exist in this realm. Work crews making repairs have felt the vibration of a train causing them to jump into the ditch. They soon realize there is none there. Teenagers trespassing on an old bridge report a bright light that disappears at 3 a.m. This report began on an evening when a gentleman was leaving downtown in the early hours after midnight. He arrived at the station to find the gates down. Turning round, he pulled out his phone to call a cab. From behind the gate, he heard the call for "All aboard!" He followed the fence till he could see the track below. Sure enough, there was a train on the tracks, and passengers making their way on board. The gentleman shouted down to the man on the platform, Sir, the gate is closed." The man on the platform looked up and smiled. Seconds later, the gate was open. Believing it was operated electronically, he made his way down to the train, stopping to thank the man. Finding a seat, he settled in and nodded off. Upon hearing his station called, he woke up and exited the train. Now the gates to his station were blocked. Having no way to exit, he made himself comfortable on a bench. As the sun rose, a workman shook him awake. When asked how he had got in, the man explained. "There were no trains at that time, sir." He was sure he had broken in. The gentleman stood fast in his story. Hearing this story, an older man approached them. "Son, what did the train look like?" The man began to describe what he had seen. Suddenly he realized he was describing a steam engine. The worker looked at him wide-eyed. He had never stopped to think about it. He just jumped on the train, eager to get home. "Son, what did the people look like?" He sat and thought. He said they had all been dressed in 1800s clothing. But how could all this be? The man and the worker looked at each other. "Son, do you not recognize me?" Taking a closer look, "You're the conductor." Moments later, the elderly man vanished before their eyes. Neither man said not another word, but made their way to the gate. An exchanged look, the men said good day. A year later, an article appeared in the local newspaper around Halloween. It explained the experience of a man who had been at the station. A photo accompanied the article. It was a picture from the early 1900s of a conductor killed by a train while working. He had been getting passengers on board the train. His coat became stuck on a nail, and he was thrown on the track. The man in the photo was the man they had seen and he had spoken to. That's one quick story for this evening. Hold on while I grab another. The next one is called Stones. There is a little-known Victorian home in the center of Ottawa, an unsuspecting place. Behind it is a park that was once a cemetery. They claim you can sense the dead among the trees, and on an evening with no moon, their spirit lights can be seen walking a forgotten path. In the fall, an explosion of color overshadows the otherwise graying landscape. The home itself is constructed of red brick from the 1890s. Panels in the modest windows have imperfections of handmade glass that enhances its charm. I came upon the house by chance on a walk one afternoon, but it was not the subject of my story. My story begins and ends within the woods on either side of the path. From that first walk through them, I could feel I was being watched. And it wasn't by the living. It was as if spirit was floating around within the trees at shoulder's height, waiting for me to acknowledge them. It became a regular routine for me to take this path part way along. On a rainy afternoon, my decision to follow to the end did not disappoint. What I found at the end of the path was the remains of the cemetery. Many headstones still marked the owner's resting place. As I walked among the stones, I called out their names. I felt a sense of joy telling them they were not forgotten. In the far corner, there stood a brick building. I carefully made my way towards it. The door was ajar, so I peeked inside. I used the flashlight on my phone to light the interior. My mouth dropped open at the sight. I was sure every gravestone from the park was housed inside these walls. My question now was, where were the bodies? Were they still there? I recall being told the caskets would surface during the spring flooding. My understanding had been the bodies were interned at a neighboring cemetery, but I was doubting it now. I began to count. When I reached 50, I stopped. I was sure the bodies were never moved. Earth and grass covered them now with a large gazebo. I felt an uncontrollable sadness come over me. Why would the city do something like this? It all began to make sense to me. None of those in the park were content. But what could I do? Contacting City Hall, I was assured all bodies had been moved and new headstones were made. I really didn't believe them. Each day I took the time to walk the path, even in the snow. As time went on, the presence in the woods lessened. I spent time with the old gravestones and surviving cemetery. I spoke to them and tracked down relatives. Each one came to pay respects. Month by month, the spirit lights lessened still, until only a couple continued to be reported. Each day without fail, I visit and I talk to them. The atmosphere has settled and all seems happy. I hope you enjoyed those two stories this evening. I enjoyed writing them. Please do check out the other videos I have here. If you see any of them that you like, please thumbs up, drop me a comment, and share out with anyone you think would be interested. While you're here, please consider becoming a subscriber, and if you do, remember to click the notification bell so that you'll know the next time that I'm here. And until the next time, sleep tight.